Arizona Cardinals at the center of an NFL collusion case. We continue to follow this story with one of the men responsible for breaking it and breaking down all the evidence of it, Mike Florio. Check him out, of course, PFT Live, Mr. Pro Football Talk himself. Check out his books on sale right now at Amazon. Father of Mine, Son of Mine. Fantastic reads for you. The cheap price, Mike, of 99 cents. And, I was telling you off air, I was blown away by you and Pablo Torre in the investigation and how you kind of told us about this unbelievable story, the 61-page doc. Fantastic work. Even the table read that you guys did where you role played, and he was Michael Bidwill and you were Dean Spanos.
Yeah, I wanted to be Bidwill. He had more lines, but I didn't get to choose. I didn't even know we were doing it until it happened, so I didn't get much of a choice in that. It really was. And first of all, I appreciate, number one, that people are interested in this and understand the importance of the topic. And number two, thanks for the chance to talk to you. But it was a lot of fun. It was very rewarding because I had been trying for months to get this document to see the light of day. And I could not understand for the life of me why it was hidden and how it could be hidden, how it could be kept from the members of the union, including the players who were the centerpieces of this arbitration. It was astounding to me. So I'm glad Pablo answered the call because I was screaming, somebody needs to get this, somebody needs to get this. And he and I eventually had a friendly competition to see who could get it first. And he got it. And I'm glad he did.
Yeah, and then we got to see the duo of you kind of lay this out, the 61-page docs, and just kind of go through it. I thought it was reminiscent of, it was like a mix between Serial, the podcast from way back when, and the NFL, two things that I'm big fans of, and just kind of hearing it go for an hour and 5 minutes was fantastic. When we look at this, you've got Cardinals owner Michael Bidwill's involvement. You called it collusion in action. And when we start to look at the Cardinals' role, you can't get away from how pivotal it was and how it played into this investigation. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, and we have to understand the context. And first of all, and I think this is a failure of the NFLPA, not just recently, but over the years, to not make sure fans understand how this works. And I'm not saying they haven't tried. They failed to get them to understand how it works. The NFL franchises are 32 independent businesses. They are not branches of the same tree. They are 32 separate trees. There was a U.S. Supreme Court case back in 2010. It's called the American Needle case, and it stands for the proposition that the NFL is not a single integrated enterprise. It is 32 independent businesses. And because of that, they easily can create antitrust liability. They have a couple of exemptions. Because of their labor union, it's called a multi-employer bargaining unit. They've got an exemption for antitrust liability when it comes to franchise tag and the draft and minimum salaries and maximum salaries and everything. It's all part of this limited antitrust exemption. But we think that it's okay for them to lock arms and do whatever they want to do. They are competing independent businesses. And when you understand that, and when you realize that the spark for all of this was that after the union failed in two different CBA sessions, 2011 and 2020, to get fully guaranteed contracts for all players, when the Browns gave Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed contract in March of 2022, the rest of the league lost their minds. Specifically, the league office lost their minds and said, hey, teams, we got to stop this. Now, somehow the NFL won because the arbitrator believed that the rest of the evidence, the circumstantial evidence of, to use your term, collusion in action, and I guess it was my term as well, I don't remember it, but it sounds good, I'll take it. But the whole week's been a blur with activity and trying to understand this. And one of the reasons it's been so frenetic, we look at that exchange between Michael Bidwill and Dean Spanos, and it's obvious. It's obvious. Like, as I said on social media, the CEO of Coke doesn't call the CEO of Pepsi to congratulate the CEO of Pepsi of getting a key employee signed to a compensation arrangement that's going to help the CEO of Coke. They never talk about it. They're competitors. Right. And this, to me, that brief exchange is so instructive on how the sausage truly gets made. They are locked arm, colluding, resisting the trend, fighting back against the fully guaranteed contract, and celebrating their victories when they do.
Yeah, and also involved is Steve Keim. There was text revealed between Bidwill and Kime about the Watson contract and how they were going to approach Kyler Murray's eventual $230.5 million, not non-fully guaranteed, about $160 guaranteed. And that, I mean, it's not a buyer's group like you see with several different owners where they get together and they just, they talk about tricks of the trade and how, they can improve their business sales. And I mean, this is completely different, especially when they want to present it as something being different as them 32 different entities. It's really fascinating. How do you think this could potentially impact Bidwill, if at all?
I don't think it matters to Bidwill per se. Now, Kyler Murray's next contract negotiation could be interesting. Other key players that they draft and develop could be interesting. I think this is more bigger picture. What will other players do now that they see what's out there and that they understand that there was an ignored mandate from the NFL Management Council to keep guaranteed money down in these veteran contracts? Because if I'm a player who, let's say earlier this year, signed a contract and I wanted it fully guaranteed and they said, no, we don't do that, and I know there was a mandate or an encouragement from the NFL to not do it, I'd potentially file a grievance. So the NFL could have more of these that they have to deal with. The flip side is the union may have a problem, because one of the consequences of hiding this for 5.5 months, there's a 50-day window under the collective bargaining agreement for filing what's called a non-injury grievance. So if a quarterback had realized the day after this decision came out that maybe he has rights, and if he tries to pursue them, the door may be slammed in his face because the union squatted on this thing long enough to extinguish his rights. And if that's the case, then the union has liability to the player under the theory of breach of the duty of fair representation that every union has to its members. So it all comes down to how motivated the players are. I'm told that several of them have been talking to people about their options. Whether that leads to action, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, there's an article up at ProFootballTalk.com right now where players, as you wrote and reported, that they're exploring their options there. When we look at this as far as how the NFLPA and their role in this, and J.C. Tretter and this strange hiring process of their executive director, with utilizing your sources, do you get a sense that the players trust the NFLPA and feel like they're their number one advocate in this, or is there some maybe distrust after all this has been released?
I believe, based upon everything I've seen in the couple of years that have passed since, and it was 2 years ago this month, Lloyd Howell just emerged as the new executive director. The secretive process, super secret. No one even knew who the other candidates were. I think what's happened is there is a collective apathy among the members of the NFL Players Association that previously the owners have used against them, because at the end of the day, the players are never going to take a work stoppage. They're not going to do it. They tried it in 1987. It failed. And the widespread thought since then is the players don't want to miss a game check. They don't want to miss a game. The other side of it is, as it relates to the union, they don't care. They're not engaged. And I think their apathy was weaponized against them by a small group of individuals who saw this as a way to capitalize and to take advantage of the situation. And what's strange about it is it's very easy to get football players to believe they're under attack when someone from the outside is attacking those who are ostensibly leading them, when the reality is they should be attacking these people as well. The voices on the outside have their best interests at heart, but there's a pride factor that's involved, and this is human nature. This isn't just football players, and people don't like to admit they made a mistake. So will the players, will the executive committee, will the board of player representatives ever do anything that would suggest to the world, maybe we screwed up by hiring Lloyd Howell? Maybe we screwed up by allowing him to put J.C. Tretter in this new position that never existed before of chief strategy officer. And within the union, they believe Tretter's trying to set himself up to be the next executive director. So it all comes down to what the players are willing to do and whether they can get to the point where they care. Do they care? That's the real question. Are you going to be like the fans who are like, we don't care, we just want football? Are the players going to be, we don't care, we just want football?
The three quarterbacks at the center of this, Kyler, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, What do we know as far as the agents' roles in these negotiations and kind of their willingness to wave the white flag as far as giving up on guaranteed money?
Well, first of all, Lamar Jackson doesn't have an agent, so
True.
he was
Yeah.
involved in the negotiations directly with Eric DeCosta of the Ravens. And at the end of the day, DeCosta thought as the 2023 draft was approaching and he was going to have to go get a quarterback, he thought that Lamar wasn't going to be back. And he made one last offer to Jackson, and he took it to his surprise as he testified within the confines of this collusion grievance. As to the other two, hey, if the team is just telling you it's a non-starter, we're not doing a Deshaun Watson contract, then you just have to do the best deal you can if you want to get a deal done. And remember, Eric Burkhardt, who represents Kyler Murray, badly wanted to do a deal. He did that manifesto, single spaced. You needed a magnifying glass to read it. And there are all those other things that came up with the homework term and all of that. And at the end of the day, and here's the other side of it, and this is what makes the Deshaun Watson contract so strange. Someone told me years ago, and this is absolutely right, true franchise quarterbacks, they declare early in their careers that they are franchise quarterbacks, and they continue to be until they retire. Now, there'll be some slippage for some, but that's about the time to retire. You start at 23 and you go into your mid to late 30s, if not 40s, as a franchise quarterback. You don't need a guaranteed contract. I believe in past years, guys like Peyton Manning traded guarantees for cash because you're not going to cut me. Now, they ultimately did because he was injured, but then boom, he lands somewhere else. So franchise quarterbacks don't need to worry about guarantees the same way that the other players do.
Yeah, we've always heard that once the Cardinals got to that number, $230.5 million, Kyler and his representation signed off on it right away. You're going to give me that type of money. We're not going to. We're confident that we'll see every single dime of that.
He's making the bet that they're not going to cut him. And most of these guys will make the bet that they're not going to get cut once they get past those first 2-3 years in most cases where the team has no choice but to keep the guy around.
Evidence points to collusion, but when you put your kind of your talk show hat on, your fan hat, when you look at just the Watson deal, the market correction, was it necessary? I mean, for powers that be come together and push back on that?
Well, I think the Deshaun Watson transaction, the trade and the contract taken together, was the single worst move any NFL team has ever made.
Right.
Because lost in the 5-year, $230 million contract is the fact that the Browns gave up 3 first-round picks and more. And those could have become core, cheap, young players who develop into the nucleus of the team going forward. 3 first-round picks gone for a guy who's given them nothing in return. I mean nothing in return. So it wasn't correct. Now look, if he'd been Lamar Jackson, I don't know, would it have spread the concept of guaranteed contracts? But at the core, this is all about collective bargaining. We have managed to get the union to not achieve guaranteed contracts for all players at the bargaining table when it's management versus labor. And once the fire starts with Deshaun Watson, are you going to allow the fire to spread or are you going to put it out? That's what this was. And the meeting in late March of 2022 was about telling the teams, the fire is lit and we need to put it out. Oh, but they didn't follow the advice. Oh, but there's been no fully guaranteed contract for a veteran quarterback since then. The next one, Kyler Murray, and that was the key. That was the first one. Yeah. And I remember my mindset back then. Okay, Deshaun Watson's gotten this 5-year fully guaranteed contract. This is a sea change. Let's see. Chris Berman used to say, once is an accident, twice is a trend. Let's see if it becomes a trend. Murray, the owners held the rope.
Yeah.
Wilson, the owners held the rope. Jackson, the owners held the rope. And the Watson deal ended up being an aberration, just like they wanted. So it's not a market correction. They just were able to hold the rope in that game of tug of war to keep these contracts from spreading.
I always got the sense that Bidwill, even before the Watson contract, wanted to put his own stamp on the quarterback contract when it came to Murray. And you saw that, the fallout.
Well, the homework clause. I mean, what a mistake. That's just an unforced error.
Yeah.
And
luckily amended that
quickly. And there's a quote in there about the incentives. We want it to be a lot of incentives, and he's going to have to earn it. Yeah.
Really strange case. And look, I mean, his partner in crime and all that, Steve Keim, no longer with the organization. Feels like they're in better hands with Monty Ossenfort. Had a banner off season. But are the days of the bad news entering the news cycle from that era of Cardinals football? Are we confident that they might be coming to an end soon?
Well, bad teams stay bad because of the people at the very top. And I don't need to run through the litany of controversies and allegations involving Michael Bidwill. It didn't rise to the level of Daniel Snyder. And I've made the comment in the past that maybe some Cardinals fans should hope it did, because when it does, what happens? You get a different owner. And there's always a risk if you drop a house on the Wicked Witch of the East, the Wicked Witch of the West is going to be even worse. But that's the fundamental problem with being a professional sports fan. You are stuck with ownership until they die or sell the team. You're stuck with them. And the and look, I follow the patterns all throughout the league. Bad teams stay bad because their dysfunction is flowing from the top. And the challenge is, and there are some teams that fall into this category, they can be competitive despite the dysfunction. If you get a really good GM and a really good coach, they can short circuit, they can bypass the dysfunction from the owner. And the way Jason Garrett, the former coach of the Cowboys, puts it is, one of the challenges for any coach and GM is how to manage up. You always manage down. How do you manage up? How do you keep your owner from screwing everything up? And there are, and I could rattle off the teams, there are teams where you got to ask yourself, how can the owner and how will the owner once again screw things up? So if they can keep Michael Bidwill from screwing things up, then they can be competitive.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like Austin Fort Gannon, their hands are all over this rebuild as they enter a pivotal year 3. And I selfishly want to ask you a question as far as the Cardinals going into 2025. What are your expectations for this team? It seems like it's a pivotal year for Kyler Murray, but also most parties involved. What do you see from this team as they kind of get out of the ugly days of a rebuild?
I think it's wide open. I think they're one of those teams where there isn't that burden of high expectation, and that can be a problem because everybody tells you how great you are. So the coach has to worry about guys having big heads. And then if you lose 3 of your first 4 games, all of a sudden you panic, right? I'd rather be a team that no one expects much of, because then you don't have guys who think that they're better than they are and they've accomplished something when they haven't. And you could also use, if Jonathan Gannon chooses to, this idea that people are not believing in us. Nobody believes in us. The thing that helps the Cardinals this year is the schedule rotation. Mm-hmm. 8 of the games are against the teams of the AFC South and the NFC South. Those are wins that can be potentially chalked up one after another. They're better games. It's a better draw than it was last year for the teams of the NFC West. The problem is the other 3 teams play those same 8 opponents. Mm-hmm. The challenge is going to be in the division. Can they beat the Rams? Can they beat the 49ers? Can they handle the Seahawks? And how you do in those 6 games is probably going to be the thing that determines whether or not the Cardinals can get back to the postseason.
Unbelievably generous with your time, and really appreciated the conversation and enjoyed the podcast yesterday. Pablo Torre finds out. Highly encourage everybody checks it out. Him and Mike Florio break down this NFL collusion case, and also check out PFT Live. I love listening to you and Sims. Turn it on NBC radio on channel 85 there on Sirius XM on a daily basis. I love the banter, the back and forth. It's fantastic. And then Father of Mine, Son of Mine, Amazon. Go get that book, 99 cents, the digital copy.
Ebook, please mention ebook. People
That's
think
right.
that I'm
digital ebook, whatever it may be. You can get
Paper
it though, 99 cents.
Free. Paper ain't free. 99 cents for the ebook. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Likewise. Take care, Mike. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.